We first bought the house. There was a 10 amp, 11 amp well pump, half horsepower jet pump down here on the ground that was connected to this tank, and it had a piece of NM that was just kind of flapped over here to an outlet. It was a 15 amp outlet that was not GFCI, and it was pretty busted up. So it was the beginning of replacing all the basement outlets, and started here. I happen to have some hospital grade GFCIs laying around. I got on eBay a couple of years ago, and they're nice. They're really tough. They grip onto the cable real good. So, and then I put this 20 amp outlet downstream just to give some extra outlets. It's downstream of the GFCI, and it's a 2x2x4 metal box. And the cover I sprayed with Rustoleum's galvanized approved universal bonding primer, which has got a really good tenacious grip on galvanized. So good that you can actually paint it and then rub it with mineral spirits, and the galvanized primer won't come off. So it's definitely on there real good. And you know how galvanized looks like crap after a couple years, so put some enamel on it. Once it cures, it's actually pretty scratch resistant. It looks a lot better. And then we sleeved it with 1/2 inch EMT. I think I'm supposed to have a clamp within 12 inches of this box. I have to put that on there. And the EMT is also supposed to be clamped up here. I believe you can get it's an NM to EMT converting clamp. They're like $1 a piece, but I just put bushings there, anti-short type bushings, to stop it from chafing. I don't expect this wire to be moving around, but theoretically you do want to have a clamp up there, because otherwise when you pull in that cable, you're actually pulling the cable and putting stress on it inside this box. There's really nothing else, because you don't really have, normally you'd have a clamp here if you were running just straight NM, but you really do want to have your NM protected if it's running up a basement wall like this. And I felt like I tried using Schedule 40 PVC, but I know that's not actually rated for protection of a cable. It's got to be Schedule 80 or EMT. And I feel like after I did try one with 1/2 inch PVC, and it didn't look very good. I feel like the EMT actually looks a little better. And over here I kind of experimented with a piece of EMT, because I had this cable running up this board and it looked like crap with NM just stapled to the board. So I had a piece of EMT laying around. That may be a problem for an inspector. If it is, I'll take it out, but we're not planning on selling the home anytime soon. But if we do, those little details, I'll get them ironed out. So downstream of this GFCI is another set of outlets that were already here, but again, they needed to be replaced. They were 15 amp, they were in pretty rough shape, and they were not GFCI protected. So same thing, I did a 4x4x2 box, and I made sure that the light was also downstream of the GFCI. Normally you wouldn't want your work lights on the same circuit as your outlets, especially for GFCI, because if they go out while you're operating a saw, that can be dangerous. But in this case, there's a separate set of lights in this. By the time you're in this part of the basement, you're going to be on that separate set of lights anyways. And I did the same thing, 1/2 inch EMT, and same thing, got to put a clamp here probably, and anti-short bushings, just to give it some protection against chafing. I replaced some of the other outlets in the basement. This one had a pair of 15 amp outlets that were actually backstabbed and broken, and they were loose. The plugs would fall right out. So same thing, I did a 4x4 box with a galvanized cover. These are 20 amp Hubel commercial grade outlets that I got. They're only $1.29, and they have a back clamp style, so that when you have a duplex or 2-gang installation like this, if you're gonna I guess you're not supposed to pass the power through the outlets. You want to use pigtails, so it's a little more work actually to install pigtails than to use a pass-through style. But if you have a back clamp style, you can actually use the outlet as a jump point. So in other words, you would have your power come in here and plug into the back of this receptacle on the back clamps, and then rather than running another one from here to here to power this, you would actually run from here to here. So you can actually put 2 sets of cables in the back of this, because the back clamp has room for 2. That avoids having to deal with pigtails. It simplifies the installation, and almost every outlet I installed in this basement is a 2-gang. So that's another advantage to having commercial grade outlets with back clamp. It's not a back stab, it's a back clamp. That's an important distinction. You really, with an outlet that's going to be running potentially a heavy load, you want to have an absolute minimum of voltage drop, especially if it's a continuous load, because you're going to be paying for that electricity loss. If you have a 15% voltage drop on your outlet, and it's running some kind of like a dehumidifier or something like that, that's actually going to add up. These outlets are only $1.29 a piece. If you look around, you can find commercial grade 20 amp outlets for $1.29. I think I want to say I got these from Fruit Ridge Tools. Sometimes they have really good prices on clearance items. I did the same thing here with a 1/2 inch EMT with a anti-short bushing. I also, again, I didn't put my clamp within 12 inches. I'm going to have to do that to make it compliant if I'm going to sell the home. Now over here I actually did a piece of 1/2 inch Schedule 40 PVC, which I later found out does not qualify as protection against physical damage. It really has to be a Schedule 80 or a 1/2 inch EMT. And also I really feel like the EMT looks better. So I'll probably swap that out with a piece of EMT. I mean, I like this because it's easy to work with, and again, you don't have to worry about chafing up here. But it makes sense to have it all uniform. I'm probably going to swap that out. Again, I did the same exact thing with the Hubel 20 amp outlets. I think one of these might be actually like a Leviton that I grabbed from Lowe's, but it's the same idea. You have back clamps, and you jump over from here to here instead of using pigtails. Saves you a little bit of time, saves a little bit of trouble. This is another outlet that I added that was not here originally. Comes in handy for hooking up chargers, hooking up vacuum cleaner. As you can see, I got it installed more than 4 feet above the ground so that my plywood pieces, my 4x8 sheets, are not going to obstruct it when it's leaning up against the wall. That's another thing to make sure you give yourself enough height to get out of the way of those sheets. And so this is on a separate circuit. It's 20 amp. I use the same thing with the back clamp, jumping over from one to the other, so I didn't have to do pigtails. Make it a quick, easy installation. And it's been really nice having this here. This is on the other side of the basement, right next to a sink, a laundry sink that I replaced, but it's really close to all kinds of plumbing and water, so really all basement outlets are supposed to be GFCI protected. But this is especially the case if you're going to be like right on top of some water. Here, there's a sink right near me. So I did the same thing here at hospital grade GFCI. All these outlets are downstream. I use a double back clamp style instead of pigtails. There's actually like a little a box spacer that you can get to space these boxes apart. The one that I had was more of it was a shorter one that was more just like it didn't really space the boxes out at all. So I put them in real tight. But I was working in the middle of the night or something, and I couldn't go to Lowe's to get the spacer. And it has like a blue piece of plastic inside to protect the wire from chafing, and it clamps on one side and screws on the other to allow you to pass the cable through. So I didn't go get the box spacer. I kind of felt like this looked better anyways. And I did the same thing with the outlet covers. I did the galvanized spray with the Rustoleum enamel, and once they cured, they came up really nice and scratch resistant. And this is an outlet that powers my dehumidifier in the basement, and it's nice to have a really good solid connection with low voltage drop, because it's not, dehumidifier probably, this one I think draws 500-600 watts, so it's not a real heavy load, but dollars and cents, it's nice to have something that's reliable. And in this case, same thing, 1/2 inch EMT, the sleeve with an anti-short bushing. I don't have a clamp on this, so I got to put another clamp on. I actually just redid this the other day, and I'll put a clamp within 12 inches of this outlet.